Now, team orders is something that we expect to see often in circuit racing, particularly Formula 1, because the team has all of its cars on track at the same time, and you can use orders to make one car do one thing or another car do another thing to maximise the results. Because even though we want it to be more about the drivers, circuit racing and Formula 1 as an example, or the main example I should say, is very much a team sport. Such team orders include Damon Hill's, "Look, if we race we could end up with nothing." This made Eddie Jordan have Sam Michael tell Ralf Schumacher that the two Jordans were to hold station in the super wet conditions at Spa in 1998. There was also Rubens let Michael through for the championship in 2001, and also in 2002 there was that race in Austria. 10 years ago this year, Fernando is faster than you. And I suppose I need to mention this for the sake of balance or being complained at, Valtteri, it's James. And in the case for the driver being told to move over, it's going to hack them off a bit, because that's where the competitive element comes in. They want to win. Michael Schumacher famously stormed into Eddie Jordan's office after that Belgian Grand Prix to complain about how his brother wasn't allowed to win, and helped buy Ralf out of his contract as a result. Rubens was not happy about being told to move over so close to the end of that Austrian Grand Prix in 2002, Massa not being happy about giving up the place to Alonso, and so on. In the case of Jordan at Spa in 1998, it was about protecting the opportunity for a 1-2 at a time when EJ was under immense pressure from his sponsors to get results. For Mercedes at Hockenheim, racing on a greasy track in front of the Mercedes board members and then crashing out would have been a PR disaster. Plus, Hamilton needed the points on Vettel, who was currently out of the race. Massa and Rubens were flat out number 2s. There's usually method in the madness here. But in 1995, team orders were applied that made one driver take matters into his own hands because he wasn't going to slow down and just gift his teammate a victory. That driver was Colin McRae during the 1995 World Rally Championship. McRae and his teammate Carlos Sainz were in a class of their own during that season. While McRae had retired from the opening Monte Carlo and Swedish rallies before finishing third in Portugal, they were miles ahead of everybody else come the end, mostly due to the Toyota cars being kicked out of the championship for those dodgy restrictor plates. Even then, the closest challenger to the pair was Juha Kankkunen, who finished the season with 62 points, but he was driving for Toyota, so wasn't classified. With the exception of the New Zealand rally, which he withdrew from due to an injured shoulder, and the Tour de Corse in which he was 4th, Sainz ended every rally on the podium. Every rally he finished, that is, as did McRae. McRae wasn't on the podium at the Tour de Corse, in which he was 5th. So Subaru was having the time of its life, and it was going to be the season when finally this little car company up against the likes of Toyota, Ford, Mitsubishi and Renault was going to be the champions, and team principal David Richards was determined for that to be the case. Because at Sainz's home rally in Spain the two were trading blows. Sainz would be quicker, then McRae would take time out, then Sainz would still be quicker, then McRae would get ahead, to the point where in the last few stages Sainz had a 7-second lead over the Scot. To make sure Subaru got to the end and sealed the manufacturer's title, Dave Richards spoke to them and said, "Okay boys, enough is enough. You're going to hold station and finish as you are. Carlos will win, Colin will be second." And while this might seem like a kick in the face, and for Colin and I'm sure some of his fans watching, they will see it as being a kick in the face, but things do need to be seen from Richard's side. He needed both cars to finish for 2 reasons. Number 1, the manufacturer's title. Toyota hadn't been kicked out yet, although one of the Toyotas was under investigation for a dodgy restrict plate at the end of the Catalunya rally. Number 2, Subaru was on for a 1-2-3 in that rally with Piero Liatti in 3rd, and it would be great for the team's overall image, even with El Matador and the People's Champion in 1st and 2nd. Colin had a tendency to overdrive due to not knowing when to back off. At one point in his career, the motorsport press was calling him Colin McCrash, and for good reason. Like I've said before, him and Beloff, peas in a pod. That said though, the 2 rallies that Colin had retired from that year weren't because of his penchant for driving at Warp 9 when he wasn't supposed to. At Monte Carlo, he just simply slid on some ice. Some ice that... Carlos wasn't very forthcoming with any information regarding that specific corner, because he later said, "Oh yeah, there's always ice on that corner," and at the second one in Sweden where he'd retired, that was because his Subaru's engine had gone pop. Despite being told to slow down, McRae wasn't going to. No way in hell was he going to, and Subaru mechanics had to resort to, frankly, dangerous tactics to get him to see sense. There's a clip where 2 mechanics run into the middle of the stage waving their arms to get Colin to slow down, and he blows past them while changing up a gear, and his co-driver Derek Ringer gives them a wave. It wasn't a, alright mate, it was more of a, look, I'm sorry lads, I tried to tell him. Now it has to be said here that Sainz didn't want those team orders. Despite the two being rivals and being portrayed as these bitter rivals, they were actually very good friends. And Sainz actually said that Colin was his best friend in the WRC. But that said, Colin did eventually cede the win to Carlos, at his dad's insistence. There may or may not have been threats from Richards as well to the effect of, if you win in Spain, you're not racing at the RAC Rally. So Colin took a tactical time penalty at the service to put Carlos back in the lead, and that was that. The title would go down to the wire at the RAC Rally in Britain for the season finale. And now we have our scene well and truly set. At the start, it wasn't too bad, all things considered. Both the Spaniard and the Scot were behaving themselves and driving well within their own limits. What needs to be taken into account here as well is that both drivers are on the same amount of points going into that final rally, so whoever finished ahead would be world champion. If both cars retired, Sainz would be the champion because he'd won more races. Motorsport magazine was comparing it to the end of the 1976 Formula 1 World Championship, Lauda and Hunt, with McRae being Hunt and Lauda being Sainz. Or variations thereof. I think I've got those the wrong way around, but you know what I mean. Tommy Mäkinen showed some great initial pace, but his rally was done soon after taking some damage. But then McRae got a puncture on stage 9 that cost him 2 minutes on Sainz. He'd also damaged the suspension, and he and Derek Ringer had to use a nearby log to bend it back into shape. Then finish the stage, and then drive the car down the M6 to Penrith to get it replaced. The only strategy Colin could employ from this moment on was the flat-out strategy. If in doubt, flat out. Rally's answer to the, I don't race to come second, fourth or fifth, I race to win. Or, if you no longer go for a gap that exists. It's said that McRae had said after knocking that suspension arm back into place with that log, she be right, no problem. So the gaps started to come down in chunks, and in some cases, hefty chunks, as Colin employed that, if in doubt, flat out mentality. Now, the team orders didn't carry over into the RAC Rally. They were free to race for the championship, and they just wanted to secure the manufacturer's title at that previous round. But the fact that Colin had been mighty pissed off by those team orders made him even more determined to win, especially after having this setback. Here's a breakdown of how much Colin was able to claw back stage by stage, with the plus here being how much further Sainz was back on Colin. 11 seconds initially, and a whopping 15 pulled back at Grisdale. By the end of the second leg, Colin had gone from being 1 minute 57 behind to 53 seconds behind. Into leg 3, McRae continued to chop into the lead. Sainz only gained on McRae at special stage 17 at Breckfast in Wales, but at Sweet Lamb, Colin went full party mode and dumped 22 seconds on Sainz to take the lead of the rally. Now this is just the time difference come the end of every stage here, because finding the total cumulative time for the whole rally has been quite difficult. The YouTube channel Dirtfish has done a very good little mini documentary on all this. They did it a few years ago for the 25th anniversary of this final rally of the 1995 season, and they talked in one part about how, well, Colin was able to break Carlos by simply going to the pub. Colin arrived for the final 7 stages on the final day of the championship and wasn't going to wait around for the service time, and went into a nearby pub for a couple of cups of coffee and played some pool. When Carlos turned up, he was all, "Oh, where's Colin? Oh, he's in the pub playing pool." Carlos had seen his lead get turned around into a 17-second deficit, and there Colin was, playing pool as if nothing was going on. Unintentional mind games, the bloke just wanted to play pool while he waited. Even with that 17-second lead at the start of the final day, Colin wasn't holding back and absolutely yeeted his Subaru through the Welsh Forest to take the overall win by about 34 seconds. As a result, he became Britain's first ever World Rally Champion, and also the youngest World Rally Champion until, I think it was last year actually. And it was a second podium lockout in a row for Subaru. Sainz was second with Richard Burns in third, and with McRae on for the title, Britain went rally mad. And as a 5-year-old growing up in rural eastern England, we all became Subaru and Mitsubishi fans overnight, because what Colin and Mäkinen were doing on those dirt roads was cool. What was a niche sport shown on grandstand on a Saturday afternoon before the football results came in exploded. And with McRae and Burns being the flag bearers for Britain, it became the start of a golden age for rallying, with the likes of McRae, Burns, Gronholm, Mäkinen, Solberg and other names becoming, well, household names for motorsport fans. Until, you could argue, up until the point Sebastian Loeb came and ruined it for everyone. But like I say, there's the Dirtfish documentary, link to which will be in the description box, that's been really good viewing and has been an instrumental part of putting together some of the more detailed facts such as times and the key stages where Colin pulled it back on Carlos. And also in the description, I'll put a link to a BBC documentary where Sir Chris Hoy gets rally lessons from Colin's dad and then drives Colin's Scoob around a very wet and foggy Wales, because that offers more of a personal look back at that particular time, at least for the McRae family. With all that said, if you've enjoyed today's video, then do give it a like so the algorithm can do its thing. And if you want to see more from this channel, subscribe and Derek ringer the bell so that you never miss out on anything I do around here. I'm going to run out of puns for that soon, aren't I? Massive thanks to the kind folk of Patreon for the support, and if you want to help out with the buying of pictures and other stuff for the channel, as well as keep things running around here, there's a link to Patreon along with the 2 documentaries mentioned in the description, along with links to Discord and also my socials. Well, there's super thanks down there too, you just want to do a one-off tip. So until next time, I've been Millward, have a great day wherever you are, and I'll see you all again soon for another video. So until then, goodbye.